Hi, welcome to Wednesday Wellness with Dr. Brianna Gaynor. And today we are going to be talking about grief. Not a fun subject, but a necessary subject. So I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to get in um, and let's just talk about grief. What's normal, what's not, and how we navigate through this experience that all of us are inevitably going to have to experience at some point. Um, Happy July, the middle of July. I was talking to a client earlier and they were saying that they were about to go back to school. I'm in Georgia. Kids start in 2 weeks. So the summer has flown by. I hope you guys have been able to enjoy your summer, have a good time, relax a little bit um, before the school year starts all over again. So, once again, welcome to Wednesday Wellness with Dr. Brianna Gaynor, and we are going to be talking about grief. So I'm just going to jump right in. As always, if you have any questions, comments, feel free to direct message us or put them in the comments during this show. We'd be happy to answer your questions. And if there are any topics that you want to talk about that we could talk about related to mental health and wellness, I'd be more than happy to do that. So first, let's talk about the myth of the grief timeline. I think what's interesting that I've learned, not just through work, but personally, is we tend to think that maybe grief is a little bit time limited. I remember being younger and going to funerals and being sad, and then my life kind of continued, and that was it. So I think for a long time, for me, grief ended after the funeral. That's where everyone was sad. That's where we honor the person who we have lost. That's when we talk about them. That's when we honor them. And then we go on to a regular life and we do the things that we are used to doing on a regular basis. And so that's not the reality of it. So personal story, about 10 years ago, not about 10 years ago, 10 years ago, actually this month, I lost my mother. I'm an only child, extremely close to my mother. So you can imagine just how devastating that was for me to lose the person that I was closest to, that has been my rock, has been my everything for 32 years of my life. And so with that, I started to struggle with what I thought grief should be. Again, as I'm relaying, I thought that after the funeral, that was it. And so when I noticed myself struggling after the fact, when I noticed that the funeral was not the end for me, it was actually when the grief really started, I really struggled. And the truth is, grief activates the part of our brain that that is also associated with physical pain. Let me say that again. Again, grief activates the same regions of our brain associated with physical pain. So we actually feel physical pain when we experience loss. What does that show you? That loss is pretty significant. So a lot of times I think we can tend to try to force ourselves to push through it, to have closure, and that sort of re-traumatizes ourselves because we're not giving ourselves the time that we need to heal. So when it comes to a timeline, what I would say is throw that out. There is no timeline. I want you to comment me if you've cried this week for any reason. And I will put that in the comments as well. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with crying. And the truth is, when we're talking about grief, I also want to open that up a little bit too, because grief is not just about losing someone to death. It's about the loss of a relationship. It can be the loss of a job. It can be the loss of a dream. But any type of loss is painful. And it's okay that you experience it longer than you think you should. In fact, maybe we shouldn't have a timeline on when grief should be over. The truth is, when you lose something, that deep pain you experience is because there was deep love. So the first thing that's important to do is to anchor yourself. Anchor yourself in your body and recognize that this was a great loss. Whether it was the loss of a parent or a loved one or a job or a dream or a relationship, the fact that it hurts means that it was important. It means that you experienced this thing. It means that you felt it. It means that it was important to you. So anchoring yourself is identifying that this was a pretty big deal. We can't heal anything that we're not willing to touch. So acknowledging that the pain exists, that it's real, that it's important is pretty significant to even starting the healing journey. So anchoring ourselves is stopping and pausing. Put your hand over your heart and tell yourself it's okay to feel exactly how you feel. One of the biggest things that we often need when it comes to loss is acceptance and acknowledgement. Unfortunately, we tend to want to get that from other people. But I'm going to say that we don't need to get it from other people. We actually need to get it from ourselves, because the truth is, in your journey, there are inevitably going to be people who may not agree, who have different opinions. Being okay with the fact that you feel it and you're okay with that is monumental to your process. So anchor yourself and normalize and validate that you felt this, that it was important for you. Don't worry about what anyone else says. This is about you acknowledging where you are. The second thing is to honor and not analyze. This is something that I've experienced. I'm having a hard time with this. This is taking longer than I thought it should, and that's okay. Not judging yourself for your process, for how you're experiencing grief, for how long it's taking is really important. I know for myself, one of the things that I had to be okay with was, especially in the beginning of the process, was that it was going to come in unexpected ways. I remember being at work or being with friends. I remember being at a friend's bridal party. And I remember I was driving home and talking to some of my close friends, and I just started crying. There was nothing that necessarily triggered it. But what I learned, especially in that first year, was that I had no control over when, where, or how the grief was going to come. And I had to start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So maybe that's the other thing, not analyzing and being okay with just what that looks like. And what that also meant was I had to recognize or figure out how to deal with that feeling in the moment. And so when I started crying and driving, I realized that I probably couldn't drive well if I was hysterically crying. So I had to pull over and give myself the time to breathe, which takes us to the next thing, which is seeking your tribe. Knowing who you can talk to is important. But the only way you find out who your tribe is to be open enough to start to at least open the door to talking about grief. What I found is that as I was experiencing my loss, I really feel like God was placing so many people in my path who had the same loss. It's interesting because when you experience something, and again, whether it's the loss of a person or a relationship or a job, you start to also kind of pay attention to all the other things around you, all the other people who are maybe experiencing the same pain or having the same struggle. And I couldn't really figure out if this had always been the case and I had always encountered these people, or was this for this time because I needed them? But regardless of what it was, I started to get what I needed when I started to be open. One interesting thing that happened was that I started a grief support group, and it was by me opening my mouth. I was at work. I was working in an office building. I remember going to the bathroom, and one of the women who was in another business suite, we just passed by, how are you? I'm good. And for some reason that day, I decided that I wasn't just going to say I was good, because I wasn't good. And I'm not sure why I shared that I had just lost my mom, but she shared that she had lost her husband. She shared about this grief support group, and the name of the group was Grief Share. You can look it up, griefshare.org online, and it's in a lot of different organizations and churches. But that was the start of my saving grace, because what it did was help me to develop and connect with other people who had experienced what I had. So a lot of times when we're experiencing pain, we're experiencing grief, starting to connect with people who understand is one of the best things. And also lowering your expectations. Because the truth is, while I have friends and loved ones who have also lost their mothers, no one's lost my mother. So it's still a very individual experience. And so knowing who you can talk to, who can just hold space for you, who can just listen to you, and who you feel supported by is important. But don't expect that they're going to help fix or heal anything, but they will come alongside you and walk with you through the process. And so let's talk about a few things related to grief and how we can work through them in everyday life. So, how do you deal with grief triggers at work? What I'm going to say may be a little surprising, but I don't think avoidance is always a bad thing, at least in the short term. So let's say it was a relationship, or let's say you're used to talking to this person every day and then you no longer talk to them. Maybe it's a breakup. And so you associate that with work because you talk to them while you're going to work. Maybe there's certain times of the day where you have conversations or text messages. Filling up your time with other things would be important. If there are specific things that remind you of that person or that thing, if you can't avoid them, what are some ways that you can adjust whatever that schedule is? So maybe you took lunch at 1:00 so you guys can meet for lunch. Maybe instead you can take lunch a little earlier. Maybe you can fill your time with something else. Maybe you can work on something that you need to work on for your job. Filling your time up with other things so that you're not sitting in the pain is important. But sometimes there's things we can't avoid. There's places, there's spaces, there's smells. And so really being able to take the time, identify that you're probably going to be triggered, and breathe is important. So is there a safe space that you can go to at work when you need to get away, when you need to take a minute? Do you need to drown out the noise and maybe get some noise canceling headphones so you can be focused on what you need to? Will a checklist help you to not allow your mind to wander so you can be focused on what you need to and not have a lot of idle time to think about the things that you're struggling with? But identifying some coping skills that are going to work right now doesn't mean they'll always work. But having some ways to fill in that space will be really important. Being able to step away and feel what you feel will also be important. And so maybe the biggest takeaway is if you can take a break, if you can walk away, if you can create a focused amount of time where you're not feeling distracted by those other things, even if that's turning your phone off, those will be helpful in the short term. And the truth is, you figure out what works for you as time goes on. Understand that grief is a journey. There's no timeline. There will be times when you'll be great and times when you're not great. Being okay with the ebbs and flows is really the biggest thing. Being okay, not loving it, not wanting this to happen, but being okay with the fact that there will be times where you'll have more of a hard time than not. And giving yourself grace in those times is going to be important. And so it is normal to grieve non-death losses in the same way. It's normal to hurt when you lose a relationship or you lose a dream or you lose a job. When we're deeply connected to things, things are important to us. We start to build our lives and our vision of what will happen. It can be hard to lose a dream that we had. And that's normal. And it's okay. Don't judge yourself for where you are. A lot of times we tend to compare ourselves to other people. Well, this person had this and they're not experiencing that, or I just need to toughen up and push through. Why do we need to do that? When we feel pain, if we don't get the pain out of us, it stays in us and that festers and that manifests into so many other things. People experience significant stress, significant anxiety and depression, significant health issues. And so it's better to get it out of you, to let it flow the way it needs to, so that you can not only address it, but so that you can be physically healthy. Because the more stress we hold in, the more we don't express our feelings, the more it manifests in so many negative ways in our life. And then what about the outside world? We're talking about creating a tribe, but what if the people who you want to be there for you aren't? What if family and close friends and spouses are telling you that you're grieving wrong? There's no wrong way to grieve. You get to grieve the way that you want to. Now, are there negative behaviors we could engage in that aren't as positive? Absolutely. But the feeling, the act of having to address your emotions, grieve, and feel loss that honestly none of us can really completely avoid, is normal, and it's actually healthy. Again, one of the greatest quotes I heard that made me smile was that great grief is related to great love. And so when I think about my mother and I think about how much I miss her, I think about the fact that I had the best mom ever. I think about the fact that I had to have her. I got to have her for that long. And she instilled so many things in me that I still miss her today. And I also think about conversations I've had with people who didn't have the same relationship. So maybe part of the grief process is appreciating what we have and how we can carry that on in life and being okay with the ebbs and flows. So if we're talking about grief, there is no timeline. It will come and it will go. Anchor yourself in your body. Hold your hand on your heart and remind yourself it's okay to feel exactly how I feel when I feel it. And then honor and don't analyze. Do not judge yourself. It's okay to feel how you feel and figure out how to deal with your feelings in the moment. You'll figure out how to kind of deal with them in different situations, but things are going to throw you for a loop. But you will start to get an inventory of what works and what doesn't. And also seek support. Don't try to go through grief or loss alone, whether it's a person, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a dream. We are all social beings who are meant to be together, help each other, work together, support each other. You are not meant to go through this alone. If you don't have those people in your life, seek out a support group. The beautiful thing about a support group is that you realize that you're not the only one experiencing this. And what I can say for myself is, even being a psychologist, I was totally unprepared. And being able to see that other people felt the same way was very healing for me. So let other people in and know that however you feel, it's okay. Don't let anyone judge you. You affirm for yourself that this is where you are and that things will continue to move and grow and develop as time goes on. But grieving is normal. It's not fun, but let's be okay with how we feel in the moment, because this is an experience that we will all have. And hopefully it's because of a great love, a great desire, a great hope, a great dream, and great purpose that we have, no matter what we've lost. This has been Wellness Wednesday with Dr. Brianna Gaynor. Thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. I did write my first book. Excuse me. It's called Nina's Smile. It's available on Amazon and all other platforms where you buy books. Please continue to follow me at Dr. Gaynor Speaks on Facebook and on Instagram. And I look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a great day and a great rest of your Wednesday. Bye.